All right, blockchain and distributed ledgers. You hear these two terms thrown around everywhere, right? And man, they get tangled up a lot. So today, we're going to cut right through all that noise and make the real difference between them crystal clear. Let's get into it.
You know, if you've ever felt like people use these words to mean the exact same thing, you are not going crazy. It's honestly one of the most common mix-ups in tech. But I promise, by the end of this, you'll see exactly how they fit together, and you'll get why knowing the difference actually matters.
Okay, so to untangle this whole thing, let's start with the one you've probably heard of the most, thanks to things like Bitcoin. And that is, of course, blockchain. We're going to build our foundation right here.
Look, forget all the super complex jargon for just a second. At its absolute core, a blockchain is basically just that, a digital record book. But, and this is the key, it's a very, very special kind of record book, completely different from any notebook or spreadsheet you've ever used.
So what makes this digital record book such a game changer? Well, it boils down to three things. First, every single person in the network has their own identical copy. Second, and this is huge, once you write something down, it's set in stone. You can't go back and change it. And third, there's no single owner. No one person, no one company is in charge. Everybody shares it.
Okay, but how does it actually pull all that off? What makes it so trustworthy? Well, it all comes down to a few core principles that are baked right into its DNA. The first, and honestly the most fundamental principle here, is decentralization. Instead of keeping all the information in one single central place, it's spread out everywhere. And that one simple idea completely changes the game.
Just think about a traditional bank for a second. The bank is the central authority, right? It controls your money. It verifies all your transactions. Well, in a blockchain, there is no bank. There's no CEO, no single boss. Instead, all of that power, all of that control, is shared across every single computer on the network.
Next up is the feature that really gives blockchain its rock-solid reputation for security, immutability. It sounds like a fancy word, but it stands for a really simple and incredibly powerful concept.
Immutability literally just means unchangeable. Once a transaction gets added to the blockchain, it is there for good. It can't be edited, it can't be deleted. This creates this perfect, permanent, tamper-proof history that everyone can trust. Because nobody, and I mean nobody, can go back and secretly fiddle with the records.
And all of this decentralization and immutability, it all leads to the third major principle, a truly incredible level of security that's just built right into the system from the ground up.
So this security comes from two main things. First, there's a ton of advanced math, cryptography, that links all the records together in a way that's almost impossible to break. And second, for any new information to be added, a majority of the people on the network have to agree that it's legitimate. This is called consensus, and it's what stops anyone from adding fake entries.
Okay, so I think we've got a pretty solid grip on blockchain now. But it's time for the big aha moment. We're going to zoom out and look at the bigger world that this technology is a part of.
So is that it? Is blockchain the whole story? As you've probably guessed by now, the answer is a big, resounding no. Blockchain might be the star player, but it's part of a much bigger team. And understanding that team is really the key to getting the whole picture.
So let me introduce you to the parent category, Distributed Ledger Technology, or DLT for short. A DLT is, simply put, any database that isn't stored in one central place. Instead, it's, well, distributed. It's copied and spread out among a bunch of different computers or locations. Sound a little familiar?
And right here, this is the main takeaway. A blockchain is just one specific type of DLT. Yeah, it's a super famous and powerful one, but it's not the only one. Think of it like this. All blockchains are DLTs, but not all DLTs are blockchains.
So now that we know the relationship between them, let's put them side by side. This is really going to help lock in the differences. How can you spot one from the other?
The biggest difference, by far, is the structure. A blockchain has to organize its data into a chain of connected blocks, hence the name, blockchain. A general DLT, on the other hand, can use pretty much any data structure it wants. It doesn't have to be a chain. So blockchain is a very specific way of doing things, while DLT is the broad concept. And while that mutability we talked about is always a core part of a blockchain, for other DLTs, it can actually be optional or customized, depending on what it's being used for.
Okay, this is all great in theory, but why does this difference actually matter in the real world? Well, it all comes down to what kind of problem you're trying to solve.
You see, that very specific block-by-block, super unchangeable structure of a blockchain, that makes it perfect for things like cryptocurrencies, where you need a flawless, permanent history of every single transaction. It's also awesome for things like tracking products in a supply chain or creating contracts that execute themselves automatically. But you know what? Sometimes you just don't need that rigid chain of blocks. For things like internal systems for banks or for managing healthcare records, a more flexible DLT might actually be way faster and more efficient. You still get all the awesome benefits of being distributed and secure, but without the specific limitations of a blockchain. This lets you build more customized, high-speed applications.
So, whether we're talking about a specific blockchain or the whole wide world of DLTs, what's the ultimate goal here? What are the core advantages that are driving all of this innovation?
This right here is the big payoff. This technology allows us to build systems that don't need a central middleman, like a bank or a government agency, to create trust between people. That trust is literally built right into the code through transparency and security. And that makes everything more efficient, way more secure, and a whole lot less vulnerable to fraud.
So that's the big picture. We are really just at the very beginning of this whole shift. As we start building more of these systems that create trust without needing the traditional middlemen, the real question is, what parts of our world are going to be completely redesigned next? Thanks for digging into this with me.